Tonight, another of the president's men talks to Congress under oath. This time, it's Attorney General Jeff Sessions on Comey, Russia meetings, his recusal, and more. We'll play extended clips from Sessions' afternoon on the Hill and analyze what went down. Then, would it be the final straw or just another play to partisans? The White House floats the idea of firing special counsel Robert Mueller, the latest person investigating the president. We've got the details and the controversy even that is generated. Then, minding the media, from Kathy Griffin to the flap over a Trump-like Julius Caesar at the Public Theater. Good evening. A lot to cover here in the next 60 minutes. Welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Another day in Washington, another key player in the Russia-Trump mess testifying under oath. Now, the main headline may well have been what Sessions would not answer. He refused to say anything about conversations he had with the president. That was a bone of contention that came up throughout the hearing this afternoon, but there was some news and some new information that we did get. Now, we'll play extended clips from the hearing in just a moment, but first, the headlines with senior political correspondent Andrew Whitman.
And we should preface this, Rich, by noting that we got very little in the way of anything completely new from the Sessions hearing today, but we did get the Attorney General and former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor on the record and under oath on several topics related to Russian election influence, the firing of James Comey, and more. Here are the headlines. And perhaps the most surprising revelation today may have been that Sessions has never been briefed on Russian efforts to influence last year's elections. No briefings during the campaign, no briefings during the transition, and none as Attorney General. That the nation's highest-ranking law enforcement official is the Attorney General, and he didn't get any briefings before he recused himself from the entire Russia subject in March. Sessions also said he had no recollection of a widely reported third meeting with the Russian ambassador to the U.S. He did describe an encounter they had at a hotel in Washington, but he described that as a casual conversation, and he could not recall the topics he discussed with the ambassador. Sessions did flatly deny ever speaking with the ambassador or any other Russian about collusion, and he denied engaging in collusion related to the election. Sessions also testified he thought it was totally appropriate for him to be involved in the firing of James Comey as FBI director, even though the FBI was investigating Russian influence. Sessions telling the committee his recusal only covered that one specific investigation and not the overall operations of the FBI. Sessions also denied having any knowledge of any recording system or recordings in the White House, and he said he has confidence in special counsel Robert Mueller and says the president never spoke to him about possibly firing Mueller, which, as Rich mentioned, has also been widely reported in recent days. Rich?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Now, as we mentioned, one of the biggest and most contentious points during the Sessions testimony was on what the Attorney General would not say. Throughout the hearing, Sessions was asked about the conversation he had with President Trump, particularly given that Trump said he fired James Comey because of the Russia investigation. And Sessions, he was asked to participate in that even after his recusal. Now, here's one of the sharper exchanges of the day between Sessions and Oregon Senator Ron Wyden.
Now, in your prepared statement, you stated you received only, quote, limited information necessary to inform your recusal decision. But given Director Comey's statement, we need to know what that was. Were you aware of any concerns at the FBI or elsewhere in government about your contacts with the Russians or any other matters relevant to whether you should step aside from the Russian investigation?
Senator Wyden, I am not stonewalling. I am following the historic policies of the Department of Justice. You don't walk into any hearing or committee meeting and reveal confidential communications with the President of the United States, who's entitled to receive confidential communications in your best judgment about a host of issues, and have to be accused of stonewalling for not answering them. So I would push back on that. Secondly, Mr. Comey, perhaps he didn't know, but I basically recused myself the day the first day I got into the office because I never accessed files. I never learned the names of investigators. I never met with them. I never asked for any documentation. The documentation, what little I received, was mostly already in the media and was presented by the senior ethics, public responsibility, professional responsibility attorney in the department.
General,
and I made a honest and proper decision to recuse myself, as I told Senator Feinstein and the members of the committee I would do when they confirmed me.
General Sessions, respectfully, you're not answering the question.
Well, what is the question?
The question is, Mr. Comey said that there were matters with respect to the recusal that were problematic and he couldn't talk about them. What are they?
Why don't you tell me? There are none, Senator Wyden. There are none. I can tell you that for absolute certainty. This is a secret innuendo being leaked out there about me, and I don't appreciate it. And I've tried to give my best and truthful answers to any committee I've appeared before, and it's really people are suggesting through innuendo that I have been not honest about matters, and I've tried to be honest.
Sessions continued to insist that his determination that James Comey should be fired as FBI director was based solely on Comey's performance at the FBI and his mishandling of the Clinton email issue during last year's campaign. So, Senator Mark Warner asked Sessions about how he exactly came to that conclusion.
One of the comments you made in your testimony was that you'd reached this conclusion about the performance of then-Director Comey's ability to lead the FBI, that you agreed with Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein's memo, the fact that you'd worked with Director Comey for some time. Did you ever have a conversation as a superior of Director Comey with his failure to perform, or some of these accusations that he wasn't running the FBI in a good way, or that somehow the FBI is in turmoil? Did you have any conversations with Director Comey about those subjects?
I did not.
So you were his superior, and there were some fairly harsh things said about Director Comey. You never thought it was appropriate to raise those concerns before he was actually terminated by the president?
I did not do so. A memorandum was prepared by the Deputy Attorney General who evaluated his performance, noted some serious problems with it.
And you agreed with those conclusions?
I agreed with those. In fact, Senator Warner, we had talked about it even before I was confirmed and before he was confirmed. It's something that we both agreed to, that a fresh start at the FBI was probably the best thing.
It just, again, seems a little, I could understand that if you talked about that before you came on, you had a chance for a fresh start, there was no fresh start. Suddenly we're in the midst of the investigation, and with timing that seems a little peculiar, that what kind of, at least to me, was out of the blue, the president fires the FBI director, and if there are all these problems of disarray and a lack of esprit de corps at the FBI, all things that the acting director of the FBI denied is the case, I would have thought that somebody would have had that kind of conversation with Director Comey. He was at least been owed that.
Now, we got one more clip. This also with Senator Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, you just saw there, on that meeting in the Oval Office. That's the one where Sessions and other senior administration officials left Trump and James Comey alone. Now remember, Comey said basically the president cleared the room and wanted to be alone with Comey. Same meeting where Comey testified the president then, when they were alone in the room, asked him, meaning Comey, to let this fling thing go.
Mr. Comey's testimony last week was that he felt uncomfortable when the president asked everyone else to leave the room. He left the impression that you lingered, with perhaps a sense that you felt uncomfortable about it as well. I'm going to allow you to obviously answer and correct if that's not the right impression. After this meeting took place, which clearly Director Comey felt had some level of uncomfortableness, you never asked Director Comey what took place in that meeting?
Well, I would just say it this way. We were there. I was standing there, and without revealing any conversation that took place. What I do recall is that I did depart. I believe everyone else did depart, and Director Comey was sitting in front of the president's desk and they were talking. So that's what I do remember. I believe it was the next day that he said something, expressed concern about being left alone with the president. But that in itself is not problematic. He did not tell me at that time any details about anything that was said that was improper. I affirmed his concern that we should be following the proper guidelines of the Department of Justice, and basically backed him up in his concerns, and that he should not carry on any conversation with the president or anyone else about an investigation in a way that was not proper. I felt he, so long in the department, former Deputy Attorney General, as I recall, knew those policies probably a good deal better than I did.
Thank you, sir, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman, but it did appear that Mr. Comey felt that the conversation was improper.
He was concerned about it, and his recollection of what he said to me about his concern is consistent with my recollection.
Okay. To me, Andrew, the thing that was really jarring, and I hosted during the testimony, is just take that exchange. Can't go into what was said, what wasn't said, but where belief has to be suspended is your subordinate, and let's be clear, the Attorney General is the boss of the FBI director. Your subordinate's in the room with the president. Whether you were directed to leave the room, as Comey basically said happened, or you were the last one lingering behind, does anyone believe there's any logical reason where if the guy, your subordinate, comes to you the next day and he says, hey, Andrew, I really felt uncomfortable. I don't want to be left alone with that guy again. What human being wouldn't say, well, what happened? What did he say? What did he ask? What happened? What did he do?
Especially given that Sessions was the last one to leave that room,
and
leave the Oval
reportedly
Office.
Lingered at the door,
right.
Stuck his head in or not.
Right.
You know, and that was kind of par for the course today. That in all these times where something you mentioned in your setup, there was 18 or whatever different, forget how many intelligence agencies all talked about the problem of Russia and everything else. He hasn't been briefed once, both before they came into the Oval Office after appointment and then in the 140-something days since? Really?
Yeah, I just briefly, my takeaway is that there are sometimes things that you legitimately don't know the answer to. And then there are some times when you go out of your way to make sure that you don't know the answer to specific questions. There's the sense that I got, and I'll be curious when Dominic gets out here if he had the same impression, but when it came to conversations with Trump, when it came to conversations about Comey related to Trump, when it came to a lot of these different subjects, I got the sense that Sessions went out of his way to make sure he wasn't in the loop, so that he wouldn't know, so that he wouldn't have to answer when these questions
And
came
he certainly didn't answer a whole lot of when asked about that one, with or without privilege. All right, we will take our first break. When we come back, we're going to bring in Dominic here. We're going to weigh in on the politics about what we heard today from the Attorney General and where this goes from here. Stay with us.